In the hush of an empty room, a single breath can sound like thunder. Some hearts slow down only when no one else is watching. They do not flee the world out of anger or fear. They simply feel most alive when the air is still and the only footsteps are their own. Solitude is not their punishment, it is their native tongue. Yet the world keeps asking why they do not speak more loudly in crowds. This quiet longing to be alone is not a flaw to be fixed. It is a deep, ancient rhythm inside certain souls, an inner tide that pulls them gently away from the shore of shared noise toward the wide, silent sea within. What happens when a person discovers that true company begins with none at all? There is a moment, almost too soft to name, when the world tilts and suddenly feels too loud. A phone buzzes on the table, a laugh spills from the next room, the kettle clicks off with a metallic snap, and something inside simply folds its wings. It does not happen in grand gestures, no slammed doors, no dramatic declarations. It arrives as a small private relief. The friend who cancels at the last minute cannot make dinner, the meeting that is postponed, the train carriage that is nearly empty on a Tuesday evening. In that instant, the body exhales a breath it did not know it was holding. The shoulders drop a fraction, the jaw unclenches. A quiet, wordless gratitude rises like warm water rises through the chest. They notice it first in the muscles of the face, how the polite smile required in company is suddenly unnecessary. The eyes soften, the forehead smooths itself without permission. No one is watching, and the face remembers its original shape. Later, walking home through still streets, the city lights feel gentler when there is no one to explain them to. The air tastes cleaner. Thoughts, which had been scattered like startled birds all day, begin to circle and land. One by one, they settle on the branches of attention, no longer needing to shout over music or small talk. Some remember the exact evening it became undeniable. They were 23, standing in a crowded bar where the bass line pressed against their ribs like a second heartbeat. Someone was telling a story they could not quite hear. Faces swam in colored light. And then, without warning, the longing arrived. Not for another drink, not for the person beside them, for the small apartment 3 blocks away, for the single lamp, for the silence that waited like an old friend who never asked questions. They left early. No one noticed. Outside, the cold air felt like forgiveness. Inside, the sidewalk stretched ahead with no obligation to speak. By the time the key turned in the lock, the craving had a name, though they would not say it aloud for years. I want to be alone. It is never about hating people. Quite the opposite. Love is still there, folded carefully in the pocket, warm and alive. But love, they discover, can be carried more lightly when it is not constantly being spent in conversation, in performance, in the 1,000 small negotiations of shared space. The first quiet pulling is tender, almost shy. It does not demand, it simply offers a doorway no wider than any room full of voices. And some hearts, without quite understanding why, step through and feel the floor beneath them become solid for the first time all day. In that doorway, they stand for a moment, listening. No applause, no judgment, only the soft percussion of their own pulse saying, "Here, you do not have to translate yourself. Here, you are already enough." They close the door gently behind them. The click of the latch sounds like the beginning of a long, slow inhale the world has finally allowed them to take. Long before the word solitude ever formed on their tongue, the blueprint was already drawn. It was sketched in the womb, in the first flutter of neurons learning how brightly the world would burn. Some infants arrive with skin 1 shade thinner, not metaphorically, literally. The barrier between outside and inside is more permeable. Sound waves land harder, light cuts deeper. A mother's perfume, meant to soothe, can feel like being wrapped in gardenias until breathing is impossible. The mobile above the crib spins too fast. Its shadows race across the wall like panicked animals. They cry not from hunger, but from overflow. In the laboratory of childhood, the evidence keeps collecting. While other toddlers run toward the birthday crowd screaming with delight, this one presses palms over ears and searches for the quiet corners behind furniture. The piñata bursts and candy rains like shrapnel. Everyone lunges forward. They take one involuntary step back, heart ricocheting against ribs, eyes already scanning for the exit that does not yet exist. Psychologists later give the pattern a name: sensory processing sensitivity. 1 in 5 carries the trait. It is not damage. It is a variant of the human operating system designed for depth rather than volume. Where others filter, these nervous systems absorb. Every texture, every shift in tone, every unspoken tremor in a room is registered, cataloged, felt in the body as if it were their own. The amygdala lights up sooner and stays lit longer. Cortisol lingers like a guest who will not take the hint. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the wise translator, works overtime trying to make meaning of the flood. By the end of a single playground afternoon, they are exhausted the way marathon runners are exhausted, except no one handed them a medal for endurance. Parents notice the pattern, but misread the message. She's shy. He's standoffish. Try harder to join in. So the child learns early that their native volume is considered rude. They turn the dial down. They practice smiling while the sensory world screams. They become fluent in a second language called pretending to be fine. Yet the body keeps its own honest records. Migraines after birthday parties, stomach aches before school assemblies, the way sleep finally arrives only when the night everyone else in the house has gone to bed. These are not tantrums. They are the quiet protests of a system that was never built for constant broadcast. Temperament researchers watch the same children grow. The highly sensitive ones pause longer before leaping into new games. They observe first, absorbing the rules through pores rather than questions. When they finally move, their play is intricate, solitary, rich with invisible narrative. A stick becomes a horse, then a wizard's staff, then a bridge across an ocean no one else can see. They do not need an audience, because the audience already exists, vast and attentive inside. Over time, the architecture reveals its purpose. The same permeability that exhausts them in crowds allows them to notice what others overlook. The tremor in a friend's voice, the exact shade of blue that means evening is turning sad, the moment a conversation tilts from safe to dangerous. They become the early warning system of the tribe, long before language gave the tribe words for danger. But early warning systems pay a price. They cannot turn themselves off at the end of the shift. So they learn without instruction that distance is medicine. A closed bedroom door, headphones no one realizes are not playing music, long walks where the only voice is wind threading through trees. The craving for solitude is not learned helplessness. It is the body remembering its original instruction. When the input becomes too much, return to the place where input is chosen, measured, welcomed only when the cup is steady enough to hold it. By adolescence, the pattern is set, not as rebellion, but as instinct. The highly sensitive brain has wired itself for depth over breadth, for the slow drip of meaning rather than the fire hose of stimulation. Solitude is not escape, it is calibration. It is the only environment where the volume of the world matches the volume of the soul. Inside the skull, a quiet negotiation always takes place. Neurotransmitters rise and fall like tides, deciding whether the world is safe to approach or better observed from a distance. For some, the tide turns quickly toward retreat. Consider dopamine, the molecule of wanting. In most brains, it surges at the promise of social reward, laughter, touch, shared victory. In highly sensitive systems, the same pathways exist, but the volume is lower, the receptors more easily satisfied. A single meaningful glance can flood the circuit the way a crowded party floods another. More input does not equal more pleasure, it equals saturation, then discomfort, then shutdown. The brain learns early. Enough is reached long before the room is full. Across the fold of cortex, the default mode network hums. This loose constellation of regions lights up when the mind is left to itself, daydreaming, remembering, weaving the past and future into a coherent story. In extroverted wiring, the network quiets under external demand. Attention narrows to the task or the person in front of them. In introverted and highly sensitive wiring, the network stays bright even during conversation, pulling focus inward like an undertow. They can listen, nod, even respond, but part of the mind remains at home, tending its own fire. The effort of keeping both fires lit is costly. Solitude is simply the moment the second fire is allowed to burn alone. Cortisol tells a parallel story. After 30 minutes in a lively group, levels begin to climb. Not from fear necessarily, but from vigilance. Every voice is monitored for subtext, every shift in posture assessed for threat or invitation. The ancient limbic system cannot distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and an acquaintance asking, "So what do you do?" with slightly too much intensity. The alarm is subtle, almost polite, yet it drains. Alone, cortisol drops within minutes. The parasympathetic response unfurls like a fern in shade. Heart rate slows. Digestion remembers its purpose. The body, without announcement, begins to repair. Neuroimaging studies show the difference clearly. When highly sensitive people view photographs of strangers' emotional faces, the insula and amygdala activation is stronger and longer lasting. They feel the stranger's sorrow in their own chest before the image has fully registered. Empathy here is not a learned skill, it is an automatic resonance. After dozens of such resonances in a single evening, the system is waterlogged. Solitude is the towel that gently wrings it out. Attachment research adds another layer. Secure attachment does not always look the same. Some children recharge through proximity, others through brief, predictable check-ins followed by independent play. The second pattern is easily misread as avoidance. Yet follow those children into adulthood and they often form the deepest bonds. Fewer, but chosen with exquisite care. Their nervous systems simply require longer intervals of low arousal between connections. The heart opens fully only when it is not simultaneously managing a crowd. Even sleep carries the signature. Highly sensitive individuals show more spindle activity during stage 2 sleep, the nights following high social exposure. Spindles are brief bursts that help the brain file and quiet the day's overstimulation. More spindles mean the brain is working overtime to press the reset button. Dreams, too, are denser, more narrative, as if the unconscious uses the night to finish conversations the daylight self could not complete. Put together, the biology forms an elegant equation. Depth of processing requires breadth of recovery. The richer the intake, the longer the digestion. Solitude is not a luxury in this arithmetic. It is the necessary pause between notes that allows the music to be heard. No one chooses this wiring. It arrives the way eye color arrives, quietly, completely, before memory begins. But once seen clearly, the pattern stops feeling like a defect. It becomes a kind of inner compass, always pointing toward the precise amount of world the system can hold without breaking. The craving for solitude is the compass speaking in its soft, unmistakable voice. Here, this much is enough. Rest now so you can feel everything tomorrow. The world has many gentle ways of saying you are wrong for needing what you need. It begins in childhood with the teacher's puzzled smile. "You're so quiet. Are you sure you're okay?" It continues in adolescence when friends text, "You coming?" and the silence that answers feels like betrayal. By adulthood, the question has calcified into a verdict. Something must be deficient in a person who can sit through an entire dinner party counting the minutes until it is socially acceptable to leave. They absorb the verdict slowly, the way lungs absorb secondhand smoke. Each casual, "You're too sensitive," lands as a small bruise. Each "loosen up" tightens the knot behind the sternum. They begin to translate their own longing into pathology: antisocial, emotionally stunted, afraid of intimacy. The culture supplies endless synonyms for broken. Guilt arrives next, wearing the face of love. A partner plans a surprise party and watches the color drain from their cheeks. A parent sighs, "We just want you to be happy with people." A friend jokes, "Do you even like us?" The joke lands like a hook. They laugh along while the hook pulls because admitting the truth, "I love you and still I need to be alone," feels monstrous. So they ration solitude the way dieters ration sugar. They stay an extra hour at the gathering, cheeks aching from practiced enthusiasm. They accept the weekend trip even though the thought of shared bathrooms and no escape makes the stomach fold in on itself. They come home vibrating like a tuning fork struck too hard, then lie awake wondering why rest feels impossible in a life full of people who care. Some overcompensate. They become the listener everyone leans on, the colleague who never says no, the friend who always hosts because refusing feels cruel. They perfect a radiant exterior while the interior runs on fumes. Eventually, the body collects its debt. Panic attacks in grocery aisles, 3-day migraines, weeks where the mere thought of answering a text message feels like climbing a mountain. Others retreat too far in the opposite direction. They cancel everything, armor themselves in silence, and discover a new flavor of loneliness, the kind that grows inside a room no one knocks on. They watch friendships cool from neglect and blame themselves twice, once for needing distance, once for failing to bridge it. The worst moments arrive when the misunderstanding turns inward. They stand in the kitchen at 2 a.m., dishes done, lights low, finally alone, and still feel the old verdict echoing. This pleasure you're feeling is selfish. This peace is proof you are incapable of love. The mind, trained by years of gentle shaming, becomes prosecutor, judge, and jailer all at once. They scroll through photos of crowded tables and sunlit festivals and feel the familiar twist. Everyone else is living correctly. Everyone else is full. Only I walk around with this secret hunger for empty rooms. In quiet hours, the resistance hardens into a question they're afraid to ask aloud. If I give the world everything it demands, my time, my voice, my constant availability, will it finally grant me permission to disappear for a while without calling it a flaw? The question hangs unanswered, while the heart keeps its older, softer knowledge. The flaw is not in the needing. The flaw is in believing the needing makes one less human. They carry both truths at once, like carrying water in hands that have not yet learned how to close gently enough not to spill. It happens without ceremony. One ordinary evening, the door closes, the lights dim, the phone stays face down, and something shifts, so quietly it could almost be missed. The silence does not arrive as absence. It arrives as presence, vast and uncluttered. The room is the same room it was yesterday, yet tonight, the walls have stepped back an inch, giving the lungs more sky. No one is coming. No one needs anything. The realization lands not as loneliness, but as a long, slow drink of water after years of sipping through a straw. They notice the body first. The shoulders, which have spent decades halfway to the ears, finally descend. The breath lengthens until it fills the lower ribs, a place it has rarely been invited. There is no witness to impress, no performance to maintain. The nervous system, so accustomed to vigilance, lowers its shield and discovers the world does not end. Thoughts that usually arrive in frantic clusters now drift in like single snowflakes. One lands, I am here. Another, I am safe. They do not rush to answer or explain themselves. They simply rest on the tongue of attention and melt into simple knowing. In that melting, memory surfaces gently. Childhood afternoons under the kitchen table with a book while adults talked overhead. Teenage nights lying on the roof counting satellites. The few rare hotel rooms on school trips where, for once, no roommate snored or asked questions. All those moments had carried the same flavor, a soft, bright aliveness that needed no audience. Tonight, the flavor returns, fuller, no longer stolen or rationed. They walk to the window. Streetlights pool gold on wet pavement. A single car hisses past and is gone. The ordinary scene feels suddenly ceremonial, as if the city itself has agreed to lower its voice so an inner ceremony can proceed undisturbed. Something wordless is being confirmed. The soul has a native temperature, and it is cooler and quieter than the world suspected. When the external temperature finally matches the internal one, the shivering stops. They do not decide to stay in this moment forever. They simply notice they are no longer counting the minutes until it ends. The old reflex, when can I decently leave, has fallen quiet. In its place is a new, almost timid curiosity. What else lives here, in this spaciousness I was taught to fear? Music plays low, or perhaps none plays at all. A candle burns, or perhaps only the refrigerator hums. It hardly matters. The sanctuary is not built from objects, it is built from permission. Permission to feel everything without having to translate it immediately for someone else. Permission to let sadness surface and pass without fixing it into conversation. Permission to feel joy so private it would curdle if spoken aloud. Later, when sleep approaches, it comes without the usual negotiation. The mind does not rehearse tomorrow's obligations or replay today's small humiliations. It simply dims, like a theater after the audience has left and the stage lights soften to a single glow. Before drifting off, a final image forms. A small boat, no larger than a thought, resting on a night sea so calm the stars are duplicated beneath it. No oars, no sail, no destination. Only the gentle certainty that the water itself is carrying it exactly where it needs to go. In that moment, solitude ceases to be the place they retreat to when overwhelmed. It becomes the place they return to in order to remember who they were before the world began its kindly, relentless teaching. The door is still closed. The phone is still face down. But the heart, for the first time, is wide open inside a room no one else is asked to enter. And it is enough. The change is not dramatic. No thunderclap, no sudden conversion, only a quiet rearrangement, like furniture moved an inch so the light falls differently. They begin to speak the truth in small, steady sentences. I need an hour alone after work. I'll join some dinner, but skip the bar afterward. I love you, and I recharge best in silence. The words feel dangerous at first, as if honesty itself might shatter the connection. Instead, something unexpected happens. The right people lean closer. The wrong ones drift away without drama. The circle grows smaller and truer. They learn the art of the soft boundary. A closed door is no longer a wall, it is a garden gate with a polite sign. Back soon, tending roses. People who love them learn to read the sign without taking offense. Those who cannot read it were never meant to walk the path anyway. Time alone stops being hidden. They schedule it the way others schedule gym sessions, non-negotiable, visible, ordinary. Saturday mornings belong to the self. Wednesday evenings belong to the page, the canvas, the long walk where no one asks where they are going. The calendar becomes a quiet declaration of loyalty to the inner life. When they return to others, they return different. The listening is deeper because the cup has been emptied and refilled at its own pace. Laughter comes more easily because it is no longer rationed. Touch is chosen, not endured. Presence is a gift rather than a performance. They discover that solitude, properly tended, enlarges the heart rather than shrinking it. A single evening of true quiet can generate enough compassion to carry them gently through a week of meetings, small talk, and other people's crises. They become the friend who can sit with someone's grief without rushing to fix it, because they have learned to sit with their own. Conflict still arises. A partner feels abandoned. A parent worries. Old guilt flickers. But now there is a practiced response. My need for solitude is not a verdict on your worth. It is the way I stay soft enough to keep loving you well. Said calmly, without defense, the sentence lands differently. Over time, it is believed. They begin to recognize their own kind across rooms. A slight pause before entering the crowd. The way eyes soften when the music lowers. A shared, wordless nod. I see you. I am you. No need to speak. The recognition itself is company. Creativity, long dammed up by exhaustion, starts to flow. Stories written at 2 a.m. when the world sleeps. Photographs taken on empty streets at dawn. Music composed for no audience but the walls that never interrupt. The work carries an unmistakable signature. Depth born of undisturbed attention. Some evenings, they still feel the old tug of shame, but now they greet it like a tired friend. Sit, drink tea, tell me what you're afraid of. The conversation is brief. The shame leaves lighter. They no longer apologize for the shape of their joy. A perfect Friday is soup, silence, and one lamp. A perfect Sunday is forest paths where even the birds seem to speak in whispers. They post no pictures. They need no proof. The joy is complete without witness. And when they do choose company, because choice is the crucial word, they arrive whole. The conversation is richer for the silence that preceded it. The embrace is warmer for the cool hands that have not been overtouched. They have learned the paradox. By protecting their aloneness, they become capable of a fiercer, more generous togetherness. The world continues its loud, bright spinning. They move beside it now, not against it. Two rhythms, distinct yet harmonious. One foot in the crowd, one foot in the quiet. Never fully leaving either place, never fully arriving in only one. They have built a life where the door can be open or closed without either state meaning betrayal. Solitude is no longer the place they hide. It is the well from which everything else is drawn. There is a tide that moves beneath every human life, invisible, patient, older than language. For some, it rises in laughter and touch, in the great crash of voices overlapping. For others, it rises only when the voices stop, when the last footstep fades down the hallway and the night folds itself around the house like dark silk. They have learned to read that tide the way sailors once read stars. When it pulls outward, they let it pull. They do not lash themselves to the dock out of fear of drifting. They drift. They trust the wide, quiet water to carry them exactly far enough, then bring them gently back to shore. In the great ledger of human needs, solitude is written in the same ink as hunger, as thirst, as the need to be seen. It is not lesser. It is not a symptom. It is simply the particular gravity by which certain souls stay in orbit around their own center. They no longer ask the tide to explain itself. They no longer apologize for the moon that moves it. They simply stand on the night shore of themselves, barefoot, listening to the soft percussion of their own heart, saying, "Here, this much sea, this much sky, this much silence is the exact measure of enough." And in that word, enough, becomes the quietest revolution. Not more, not louder, not finally fixed, just enough. Enough room to breathe, enough stillness to hear the small wings of thought open, enough aloneness to remember that love, when it returns, is chosen, not endured. They carry the sea inside them now. It travels in the pause before they speak, in the way they can sit beside a friend's sorrow without rushing to fill it, in the gentle refusal to attend one more gathering that would leave them hollow. The world feels the difference, a presence that is calm, unforced, oceanic. Some nights they still wake at 3 a.m., the hour when every unanswered question grows loud. But now the questions are softer. They sound less like accusations and more like lullabies. Are you resting? Are you safe? Is the tide still carrying you? And the body answers with the slow rhythm of breath, the small yes of a heart that has stopped apologizing for its own quiet. Out there, the loud world keeps spinning its bright carnival. In here, another carnival turns, slower, lit by a single lamp. Both are true. Both are necessary. One teaches the soul how wide it can open. The other teaches how gently it can close. They have stopped choosing between the two. They move between them the way breath moves between inhale and exhale, neither privileged, both sacred. And when, years from now, someone asks how they lived so peaceably with their own company, they will not have a clever answer. They will only smile, the way a lake smiles at the sky it perfectly reflects, and say, I learned to come home before I was asked to leave. I learned that the deepest belonging is the belonging to the silence that always says my name correctly. The tide keeps moving, the moon keeps its ancient appointment, and somewhere in a small room with one lamp burning, a heart keeps its older, quieter appointment. To be alone, to be whole, to be enough.